Hi everyone, I just want to show you my approach to doing a global transport in MainStage. As you know, with MIDI keyboards, a lot of them that have the built-in functionality to change the transposition on them just as a physical button on the keyboard itself, but especially when you're working in two keyboard layouts or have some pads in there or things like that, we need to have a quicker option or instead of doing it on a patch by patch basis or having to hit a couple different buttons on the hardware that we have. And so my approach to this was to take advantage of the Action MIDI Transpose option that is built into MainStage, and I assigned it to a couple pads so I could quickly change the transpose option on the fly. And so the way I did that is I used my bottom row of pads that are on my top controller, and I mapped them to either increase, reset to 0, or decrease by 1 for transposition, and I added a label here so we can clearly see are we transposed or not. So the effect is that you hit a key on the keyboard, we're normal there. If I hit the same, you'll see again, we can hear it increase back to 0 or negative, right? So quick, easy transposition options right away here. And so that's the live example here. Let me show you behind the curtain, and this is how I set this up. And so there's kind of two elements to it. One is under the layout. I just have my 4 buttons here. And then the trick here, I'm going to actually delete this pad for a second. I added a text control on top of the pad. And so that is what is going to provide the label here. And so you'll see it's just parameter text, and it's going to display a value is what I have it set to. And so if I go to our edit screen now, definitely want to do this on the concert level so that you don't have to make this change again throughout your different patches that you have set up. And so on each of these pads, we're going to just confirm the mappings that we would like to have. And so the first thing here is we're going to take each one of these pad controls and make sure they're mapped to do the action that I have labeled here. So this first pad, we have added a mapping. You would just hit this plus button here to get a mapping started. And under the actions folder, there is the MIDI transpose option. And so this button, the only thing I want it to do is to go down a half a step. And so I set the range max and minimum to be -1. On this one here, I hit the plus to set actions to MIDI transpose, and this is always going to reset it to 0. And then this one naturally would be the +1. And so each one of these, it's either -1 on MIDI transpose, set to 0, or then +1 over on here. And then on my patch template that I use to copy and paste into everything else, what I have done here is I take this text block, and under the MIDI transpose, I added a mapping for that under actions, MIDI transpose, and it's just simply showing whatever value is represented when these 3 buttons hit. And so that is how I set this up. Very simple, very straightforward, 1 button away for transposition options in MainStage. If you want to get a little deeper into how this template is set up or even get an example of it, definitely watch the MainStage customizing the layout part 2 as I break down this whole layout and kind of my general philosophy for setting up this template and how I use it live.